Man, do I have something special for you. This is going to be episode number 1 of what I hope is an ongoing series called Meet Your Maker, where I sit down and talk with creators from some of your favorite knife channels. I got to hang out with a really good dude, JT from JT's Knife Life, and we were able to talk about some of his favorite knives, manufacturers, some of his favorite designers, a behind the scenes look at where and how he records his knife reviews, even talked about some of his hidden talents. I really hope you enjoy.
Is there, like, other than like your extensive knife collection, what is there anything else that do you collect anything else also?
Not really anymore, but I have been like a serial hobbyist for forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and once knives started, I think that sort of like pushed everything else out. But I mean, before knives, I was super into WWE, like big time.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I remember you said something about that.
Yeah, so I mean, there's still Star Wars, and I read the comic books and the novels, and like I'm pretty into Star Wars about as far as time will let me be. But like before that, I was super into like the wrestling. I saw it, and I still do see that as like a performance art. You know,
Oh,
people,
sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
oh, yeah, it's fake. Well, of course it's fake. Like hopefully you understand that.
Oh,
But
yeah.
but it's like going to theater. It's like a male soap opera live. So I always really enjoyed that from the time I was a kid. You know, I was aged perfectly for like the peaks of that business. You know, when it got really popular, I was a teenager, and then like when I was a kid, there was Hulk Hogan, and then again, even as in like an older adult.
When you mentioned the WWE, who is your dude? Like,
So
who's
it was Shawn Michaels. So Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid, and so I stopped going. I stopped being involved in it when he retired. So WrestleMania 26, I flew out to Phoenix to see his last match versus The Undertaker, and he
Oh,
lost.
really?
Yeah, yeah, I was like 20. God, what was I? Like 23, something like that. 23, 24, around that
Yeah,
age.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah. So I mean, I was into it to that extent at that point. So.
Since we're well, wait, since we're talking about favorites,
Mhm.
knife designer, is there like one dude that you see his design and you're like, oh yeah, I gotta have it.
Um, Still Ken Onion. Like Ken,
Really? Really?
yeah. I mean, he was the one who like more than anyone got me into it. You know,
Really?
well, because when I first got into knives that weren't branded Gerber, because Gerber was like the first brand that I was like introduced to when I started like collecting them because they were
Sure.
cheap. You know, so you go from that to Kershaw, and then you start seeing this guy's name on all these blades. Ken Onion USA, Ken Onion USA. And so who's this guy? And so like Kershaw Leak, the Blur, all these great knives. And so even now, even though like he's not doing as much, when he does have a new design, I'm always paying attention. I think I think though for what my current preference, it's more about Osborne, the Warren Osborne Benchmade. So
Really?
oh yeah, I like to go back, and I have a couple of them right here. Try to go back and like try to find all these old ones. This is the 930 Colgera.
Oh, oh wow, look at that. Now you can
Yeah,
kind of see where the 940, because I mean, look at
yeah,
it, just looks like like a 940 blade kind of on steroids.
yeah. And here's a 960, and he just has so many great of their like so many great designs that he.
Do you have any Ken Onion designed knives that are safe queens?
No, but I want one. But like
Which
so he so many of his like production knives, they all have like custom models, obviously, that they're based off of. And
sure.
most of his stuff that you can get, it's not like most of that high end stuff, it isn't actually custom made. It's like quote unquote mid tech. I think he's the person who actually like came up with the phrase mid tech.
Really?
Yeah, where like the knife is actually hand assembled, but like it's machined, and some of like the actual procedures are outsourced, but he's putting each one together by hand. And so he has like some of God, what's the one that came out this year from CRKT that it was like the little one, man, I the Slacker. So the Slacker from Ken Onion, like that mid tech one of those would definitely be like, it wouldn't be a safe queen if I could get it. I'd carry that knife for sure, but that's pretty close to it.
What about like fixed blades, balisongs, multi-tools, Swiss Army knife? I mean, do you have any kind of a collection of any of those?
So I have a couple fixed blades, but they're really just for specific purposes, like bug out bag or kits or stuff like that, you know? So I don't collect them. I don't carry them like ever. I used to be in like, what was it? Probably like 6 years ago, 5, 6 years ago, I sort of toyed around with neck knives. So I'd have like a neck knife on and I'd, you know, wear them a couple times a week, but it just didn't stick. Balisongs
No.
Balisongs are a definite no.
No.
I don't get it. No,
Sure.
no harm to the people who do, because it brings a different dynamic to the community, and it's sort of cool to see people excited about, like, again, going back to Benchmade, like someone who says they're a big Benchmade fan and they're into models that I'd never give the time of day. So I mean, it's great to have that variety. But what was the other one? Oh, multi-tools. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing as fixed blades. Like I carry. Actually, I'm gonna swing around for a minute.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take you with me around the room. So my keys, I carry a Leatherman Micro.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I mean, I've had this thing for years and years. I think it's like I don't know. I can't remember. I did a video on it because I actually disassembled the thing, and it was a heck of an endeavor. But
yeah. Wow, you disassembled that. Holy cow. Yeah, you're a brave man.
it took. I mean, this was black at one point.
Holy cow.
Hold on. I might just take you all around the room with me.
Yeah, that's all right.
Let's see which one. Oh no. So here. So. All right. So here's the squirt
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
score, and here's, so they're about the same size. I couldn't remember which one the squirt was when you brought it up, but I actually did. I did a video at one point comparing these two, because the squirt seemed to me to be a good replacement for the Micra, and
Yeah.
and I was really excited to test it out. And what I found was that because the squirt, all of the tools open from that, with my job in restaurants, washing my hands as much as I have to over and over again and putting my hands back in my pocket, like there's always moisture in my pockets, and like it was just rusting.
Really?
Yeah, and so the Micra closing and opening the way that it does, and all the tools being inside, it still needs regular maintenance, but it's not nearly as bad as like the squirt was. So the squirt got carried for like a couple weeks, and I realized, nope, not.
As long as we're talking about like maintenance and stuff, what I would really like to know is how do you store your knives? Are you a Pelican case guy or what?
Nope. I'm a keep every box guy.
Oh, so you put them back in the box?
Oh yeah. Hold on.
Really?
Let's see. Over my shoulder, right there. So
That can't be all of them.
it's a lot of them. I mean,
Really? Oh well, wait. Okay, I see. It's a couple shelves.
Yeah, some of them don't have boxes, you know, but I mean that's a few Benchmades and some Spydercos, and I think Kershaw's up top, and then yeah.
So every time you want to look in, like, let's say you want to fondle a knife for a minute, you go and grab the box and take it out of that.
Well, most of what I am currently working on, if you look over my shoulder at my desk, where is it? So like if you look over my shoulder at my desk, you'll see a bunch of boxes, and those are the knives that I'm currently like carrying or working on or doing something with or like going to be reviewing. So like I have about a dozen or so boxes at any given time, like out, and then the stuff that's up there in the shelves is usually stuff that's like not in the current rotation.
Yeah, yeah.
Now,
Wait, is that table? Is that the table? Is that where the JT Magic
that's
happens?
it.
Right?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
So when you're doing a video, right now we're just looking at we're looking at that space.
That's it.
Wow.
Yep. And this crappy little tripod is the tripod that I bought before I made my third video.
Holy cow! Yeah, that is little.
Same crappy little tripod.
Well, yeah. I mean, hey, if it works. So how many knives does JT own? Do you have you like a number, an approximate?
It's got to be around 100.
Really?
Yeah, and I think at one point it was like upwards of 150, and I've trimmed it a little bit. I'm hoping to trim it some more, but yeah, it's got to be around 100. And the reason for that, more than anything, is like what we were talking about earlier with like not necessarily bad decisions purchasing, but a lot of the budget stuff that I end up buying, like I want to get it, I want to review it, I want to know what these companies are doing in like the $30 to $40 price range, but they have no resale value. I'm not going to resell a used $35 knife for 20 bucks and then spend 10 bucks to ship it out. I might as well keep it.
And first production knives. For example, yeah, let's say Benchmade first production run knives. Do you carry those? Would you carry them?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Regardless of the number, like, you know what I mean? Like, what if it was number 2?
If it was number 2, I maybe wouldn't carry it.
Okay. So there is a threshold.
Yeah, but it also depends on the model, and the thing that I think is it's a trap that people on the aftermarket can fall into is that you can get this idea that a first production knife is going to be like super valuable or more valuable than the regular thing, but if it's not an in-demand model or it's not discontinued and like popular, like it shouldn't add any value to the knife at all. And I mean, it can be a sentimental thing, sure, but I'd be like, I don't pay more for first production knives now unless it's something I specifically want. But when I was first hearing about them, I had like there was this allure to them, I guess, that it's first production.
Yeah.
But now there's like 1,500 first production, and I don't know.
Is Benchmade your favorite knife company? Do you have a favorite?
Yeah. It's them.
It is Benchmade.
Yeah, and they're like, it doesn't mean they're the best, and it
Sure.
doesn't mean that doesn't. I mean, honestly, the past couple years, very few of their new models have been of much interest to me.
Yeah, I know exactly. Yeah, I know what you mean.
But they're like it. I mean, you probably know it's like marriage. It's not perfect, but there's something there that like, it doesn't have to be the best thing all the time. It is what it is, and you're just on board with it. And I think the first time I got a Benchmade, like my mini Griptilian, it like made me a Benchmade guy. Just did, and that it's not really an obsession. It's like it's just there's something in my head about it. When I get a Benchmade, it's special. It means something. Doesn't mean that Spyderco doesn't completely blow them out of the water with some of the stuff that Spyderco does, because they
Right.
do. And
Right.
there's a lot of good competition out there. And I mean, I've done like my favorite knife of the year, my top 10 of the year every year since I've had my channel, and it's never been a Benchmade. So,
Really? Oh, really?
no, you know, so it's not necessarily again about being the best, but that brand means more to me with my channel. But my favorite part of being a collector is like finding an old model that I didn't think I'd be able to get. You know, CRKTs are great for that too, because CRKT like had some amazing stuff back in the day that people can't even imagine, you know, came from them when you see it.
Yeah, true. Yeah, yeah.
And so chasing down that stuff is just like that, probably just as special as any other aspect to me. And Benchmade just has some of those like classic designs. Those Osbornes. I mean, Warren Osborne isn't alive, so you know the ones that from him that I want to get, they're old and discontinued, and you know
Right.
it's a lifelong chase. You know, in another model with Benchmade, and this is going to sound like an embellishment, but it's 100% true. I check eBay with the search term Benchmade at least 5 times a day.
Really?
I literally see every single Benchmade that gets put on eBay, unless it gets sold within a couple hours. You know, like I am on top of it. Like I want to know. I want to know what the knives go for. I want to know what people have that's available. And honestly, like even though there are a lot of like fakes that you can get caught up with,
Oh gosh, yeah.
I mean, still there'll be like somewhat frequently a model that'll be like, holy shit, I've never seen that before.
Have you ever purchased a knife and then you realized it was a fake?
Oh yeah.
That's happened to like
Yeah, like 3 or 4 times, yeah.
3 or 4 times? Really?
Yeah.
Now, were these knives all purchased from the same place, or
eBay.
they were all on eBay? Okay.
Well, actually, the first time it happened was on Amazon.
Really?
Yeah, so I bought a Spyderco Spin on Amazon, not from Amazon, from like some seller on Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I got it, and it sucked, and I couldn't get an edge on it. I mean, I'm not a good sharpener to begin with, but like I couldn't get an edge on it, and eventually, I don't know how I just like fell into finding out about this, but I saw like a counterfeit post somewhere with like the fake sitting next to the real one, and the machining on like the handle was slightly different between the two, and I realized I had the fake one. And I mean, it was like a year later. So maybe you know this, maybe you don't, but like my biggest pet peeve is up and down lockup. Like
I was just gonna ask you about. Okay, go ahead. I was gonna ask you about that. Go ahead.
We can swing back around to it. I'll talk about it all day. But I hate it. I hate up and down lockup. It drives me nuts. I don't know why. I don't know why I started hating it as much as I do, but just any movement beyond just even like a little shimmer of, you know, just bothers me, and I wouldn't be able to sell anything that you know that had it. And some of the stuff is like, if you talk to the companies that produce the knives, it's, well, that's sort of okay to a certain extent. You know, like in my experience with warranties from Kershaw, CRKT, etc., like if there's a little bit of that up and down rock, they don't necessarily consider it a defect, and so they don't always fix it.
Really?
Yeah. So so there have been a couple situations that I've been in like that, where it's like, all right, well, I can't sell this to anybody now because it's, you know, for me, I wouldn't be happy to receive it.
Just to be clear, for those that don't know, okay, so when you're talking about the movement, you're talking in the locked position.
Yeah.
And you can move it up and down.
Yeah.
Correct?
Absolutely.
That's what we're okay.
Mm-hmm.
The side to side, you're okay with that?
Side to side, you can usually figure that out to some extent, but a little bit of it is manageable for me. Yeah. Just the up and down, I don't know why. It's just you know, even
that's true. I mean, I guess you bring up a good point, because how could you fix? I mean, like side to side, you can fix sometimes. Up and down, you know what I mean? What is there that you can do to?
You can mess with lock bars and liners and stuff like that. You you can do things, but like I don't think I should have to do that.
No, true.
And my argument about the up and down kind of play is, even on budget knives, is that, well, like, there are plenty of CRKTs and Kershaws that don't have it, so they've proven that they can do it. That they can execute the knife well, so like that should be the standard across the board.
I always like to group stuff in threes. So is there like a clear cut, like number 2 favorite brand, number 3, or no? Or do you not think about it that way?
If I had, when I'm thinking about like what makes the brand my favorite brand, it's I'm thinking about specific models that just mean a lot to me. You know, like that's what makes Benchmade for me number 1. So
right.
So number 2 would probably be, I don't know, Spyderco. Like they're all probably just all tied up there. You know, Spyderco, Kershaw, CRKT. You know, they all
Kaiser
just makes good knives. So like from an execution standpoint, like they're probably right up there. You know, but I don't have knives from them that are like that I have to go to the grave with. Even though they're some of the best knives that I own, like they're not, you know, they're just really good knives. So
okay, so Benchmade, and then number 2 would be basically a bunch of other companies.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because I mean none of them are perfect, you know, but I don't have the personal attachment to the other ones any more than any other, you know. There have been Kershaws and CRKTs that have meant a lot to me, and plenty of Spydercos too, you know. For the channel's sake, probably Spyderco, just because, you know, the first knife that I ever had on the channel was a Spyderco. So, I mean, that means a lot.
How do you feel about Ganzo knives? Yeah, I know.
So Ganzo, I think that they should just change the name of the company and just start over.
You know what? Yes, I can't argue.
People have this conception of them, and they're not going to change it, and I don't expect them to change it. And even though the copying of designs and stuff is something that like happens in every walk of life, it still isn't something that is indicative of integrity, right? So
I guess when I mean okay, how about the FH series? Because none of those,
right? Well,
none of those are like clones or whatever.
What I was trying to get at was they're doing this stuff now that is on a different level. It's creative. It's unique to their designs, right? And it's still being put out under the same name, and a lot of people, I think, aren't going to give it a fair shot. I mean, the knives that I've seen, that I've handled, like, they're good and they're cheap, and it's sort of hard to argue with that. You know, I'm not going to tell anyone that they shouldn't get Ganzos, and I don't have any particular reason to avoid them. You know, I don't have a problem with them at this point.
I want to talk about more, just a little bit about your channel. Okay. And, you know, you as a creator. And now I know you've been on, I think you told 3 years this month.
Yeah.
Right? You've had your channel. And I think you're like pushing 6,000 subscribers, which is fantastic, by the way.
Thank you.
When you're doing a knife review, how long does it take you on average to create that video? I mean, I'm talking about, like, you know, the note taking and the thumbnail, like, all, you know what I mean? Like, factor all of that in. How long does it take you to make a knife review? Or is it different for each knife?
It can be different for each knife depending on the video, um, because a lot of the time is just finding like what the angle is going to be. Like, what's the story of the review? What's the big point? What am I trying to say about the knife?
So
You know?
that's a question you try to answer right away, correct?
Yeah,
What?
I mean, it basically what are the big factors here that people have to know about? You know, and where does that fit? If you're following my channel, like where does that fit in the scheme of the other knives that I talk about? You know, and it's not something like I don't talk about that. Like that mindset is something that if you watch all my videos, you probably won't recognize it, but it's something that I don't know, I just try to focus on like that, where that fits in the bigger picture of like my preferences in my collection, you know, and so with some knives, it'll be pretty straightforward, like almost immediately, you know, and but then the video can be just a bitch to record for whatever reason, you know, and it used to be that it would take me like 2 hours sometimes to record a 15-minute video
Yeah.
because I keep screwing it up. I don't really take notes. I don't really write stuff down unless I have a bunch of videos that I do, like the 10 things you need to know. Like those 10 things get written down.
I like. Yeah. I enjoy those videos. By the way.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
They're really fun. They're fun to do. So I'll know what each like topic is going to be, but nothing after the topic is written down. So I'll fill in the topic, move on to the next thing. And then certain discussion videos, certain things like I'll have high points or things that I have to make sure to mention. But when it comes to just a review, a lot of times it's recording and re-recording that takes the time. And then a lot of times it's just like having the ideas set in my mind before I start. You know, I've gotten it down a lot shorter than it used to be. It's like usually less than an hour to film now, and then
Wow.
less than an hour for everything else.
Wow.
Yeah,
That-
because I'm not trying necessarily to hit everything, and uh, sometimes I'll get comments and I'll get feedback like, oh, well, you forgot to say this, you forgot to say that.
Oh yeah, that's always going to happen. I mean, that's.
But but I try to make videos for people who watch videos the way that I do, if that makes sense. And
Sure.
you know, like I only have myself as like the measuring stick of what people could like. And I know that before I started making videos, when I was watching channels all the time and watching reviews, I didn't just watch one. You know, there were very few people whose words I took, like, hey, if they say I need to buy this, I'm going to buy this. Very few times, you know, even Cutlery Lover, when I was like, before I was making videos, he was one of the channels that I was like really into. And I
Sure.
remember the CRKT Ripple came out, designed by Ken Onion. When that came out, he gave it this glowing review. And I mean, I knew I didn't need to watch any more videos because I knew I had to get it
Yeah.
just because of that. But that's not the expectation, you know. And if you're, and hopefully I've built trust with the people who watch my channel, and hopefully like they understand if I say that a knife is good and they know what other knives I think are good or what other things I say, you know, about other models that can sort of give them like correlation, then that can give them context in order to make a purchase or not. But it shouldn't necessarily be I say it's good, so get it, or I say it's bad, so don't, you know?
Well,
And I don't do videos with that kind of, yeah. And so if I miss something, like obviously I try not to. I try to hit all the high points that I can and get into all the details, but like it, it's not really possible, you know. And I don't really
right.
do cuts either. I usually do it in, you know, it takes a lot of like attempts, but I do it. It's one take without cuts for a review. So sometimes I get to minute 18 and I realize I didn't say something that I wanted to say, and
You
I'm not
start over.
I'm not going to do that.
Right.
Sometimes, like, if it's a big enough thing, I do, but not every time.
So wait. You do all one. You do one cut there's like no editing. So when we're watching one of JT's videos, what we're seeing has been done all in one
Yes.
take, correct?
Like with very few exceptions. Like sometimes, you know, if I'm cutting from locations, or there have been times where I thought I just absolutely crushed it in a video and then I made one mistake and I like, you know, and so you'll see that transition, you know, that and that'll happen, but I mean less than 5 times. You know, it's always like start and go. So even like those 10 things videos,
Yeah.
I think one of them, like at like number 6, there was like a break between 6 and the rest, but like that's almost always, even though that has those transitions, it's always like one.
Now, when you do your knife reviews, do you have like this might sound kind of weird, but do you have like a ritual, like a pre-review ritual? Like, do you have to drink like a pot of coffee before you turn on the camera, or you have to eat like, you know, a 3-foot sub sandwich before you go on? Like, what do you have any kind of a ritual?
No,
Nothing.
no. I mean, what I like to do, a lot of them get filmed at night. You know, like late at night.
Or yeah, so because it's quiet.
Yeah, 'cause it's quiet and I just have more time at that point of the day. But what I like to do is on the way home from work, you know, if I'm working at night before I'm gonna film a review later that night, like in the car on the drive home, like I won't be necessarily like doing the review out loud in the car, but like sort of,
You're working it out in your head
yeah, working
while you're
out.
in the car.
And I mean, a lot of what I'll do in the couple days before I'm going to be doing a review is like, you know, if I'm watching TV, the knife that I have, I'm going to be like, just have it in my hand, you know, just like knife fondling. That's the one that I'll have, and you know, just constantly just looking for things to talk about, but nothing as far as like rituals per se.
Do you have a worst injury? What's your worst like knife injury? Do you have one? I mean, have you hurt yourself really bad?
I have a few, you know, a few, but I don't know
A few.
that any of them were like worse than others. Just cuts, you know, nothing too major.
So like finger stuff, but nothing bad.
Nothing really bad. There was one on like the tip of one of my fingers, and it was a knife that I was modding, and I just think that like I can't even remember what model it was, but I just think that like my finger was just in the path of the knife when I was closing it, and
Yeah.
I just like doing it absent-mindedly, and I got myself really good. I mean, that kind of stuff happens. So one time I really cut myself bad in use was with a Kershaw Blur, and this was long before the channel. This was like,
Oh, really?
6-7 years ago, yeah. And I was just cutting cardboard, and I had my other hand, you know, holding the cardboard in front of the path of the knife, and I just didn't move it.
And you sliced right into the face. Did you have to get stitches, or were you?
No, never had to get stitches, so it's never been that bad.
So you never been fondling a knife, and then it slips out of your hand, and it lands on the top of your foot like this. You nothing like that. Like we're talking just pretty much finger stuff with you.
Yeah, just finger stuff. Nothing like that. You know, my dad. Dude, it's so funny that you said that. My dad had that happen to him literally like less than a month ago.
So dropped it straight down like on the top of his foot.
He was fishing, and I can't remember what kind of knife it was, but he was fishing, and in his like kayak, and he dropped it and he dropped his knife, and it went literally just like stuck straight up in his thigh.
Oh my gosh! I mean, I guess it'd be good for storage purpose. You know, like if you're not using the knife at the time, that would be good. just have to pull it out of the foot. But you now a couple just about 30 seconds ago, you mentioned modification.
hmm
Is there now? I like to modify knives, and I mean you do some great ones, especially with like the acid etch, the stone wash. I know you said your laboratory for doing the stone wash is pretty crude, but it at least as far as I'm concerned, they always seem to turn out pretty good for you. Is there one knife mod that you've done that you are the absolute most proud of?
It it's probably that Buku. That's what it was, not the Batu, the Buku, right?
Yes, that's right. Buku, big, yeah. Two Buku, yeah.
The Buku is probably one of them because it was complicated and it wasn't perfect, but it came out pretty well. And there was a few CRKTs that I did for one friend of mine out west, and those knives, I sort of like pushed the boundaries of
Experimentation.
yeah, at least for me, I mean, I know there's people that do like far more intricate stuff than I do, but most of the fun for me is like the process, and so like most of the fun for me is the process of it and like trying to figure stuff out.
Ask about. Do you have any hidden talents? Do you juggle? Do you I mean do you I don't know. Do you skeet shoot? Do you sword swallowing? Anything? Do you have any hidden talents?
I don't think nothing. No, nothing hidden. I mean, I used to. No, not in this life. I'd say maybe in other lives I had, other abilities and other talents and other aims and endeavors. But currently, no, I don't think so.
So no musical ability, no like you're a great tennis player, nothing like that.
Okay, so.
Oh boy.
I don't know why you just said that. We'll get back to that in a second. Musical ability, no, it's the complete opposite. It's bad. Like musical inability, artistic inability. I've like within the last month have taken up playing tennis.
Really?
Yeah, like never had before in my life. But I live like an eighth of a mile away from tennis courts.
Yeah.
My wife and I are trying to be more active. With the job that I have now, I'm a little bit more available when she's available, so we're able to go a couple times a week and just hit balls and run around and yeah. So actually tonight I was playing for a couple hours. So.
All right. Well, you know what? That's pretty much all I got for tonight, JT. Thank you so much for spending the time and letting everybody, I don't know, just like a small glimpse into your world, beyond the hands and the knife, and now make sure those of you that are not familiar with JT's channel, he's at JT's Knife Life. I will go ahead and include a link down in the description below so you can find him that way, and I highly recommend you toss a sub his direction. So, JT, thank you. It's been a pleasure. Good time.
I really appreciate it. Good talk. Definitely we should do it again in the future.
I would really like that. Definitely. All right. You take care.